Now the way meaning of Hindi Chini Bhai Bhai seems to have changed from the time it was coined for the first time, when both these two countries were ravaged by either war or colonialism. The meaning of Hindi Chini Bhai Bhai today means more of the world's imperative than the bilateral interests required of these two countries. Chinese Premier Wen Jiabao arrived in India last week for a 3-day visit, and he brought with him an uncharacteristically large delegation of 400 businessmen. The Chinese Premier during his visit said that he has come to India to expand bilateral strategic ties between the two countries, and also stated that the foreign ministers of India and China should look into all the pending issues between the two countries.
In a bid to remove irritants which have crept in bilateral relations in the last 1 year, India and China last week reached broad consensus on several issues and also pledged for firm commitment to resolve outstanding differences, including the boundary issue through peaceful negotiations. After holding talks on key security and strategic matters, Prime Minister Manmohan Singh and his Chinese counterpart Wen Jiabao issued a joint statement that said, "There is enough space in the world for the development of both India and China, and enough areas for India and China to cooperate." The two sides also decided to work together to maintain peace and tranquility in the border areas in line with the previous agreements. Both the countries have also noted the good cooperation between China and India in the field of trans-border rivers. Underlining their unequivocal opposition to terrorism in all its forms and manifestations, the two countries moreover stressed that there is no justification for any act of terrorism anywhere.
是历史遗留下来的。彻底解决这一问题，不是一件容易的事，需要足够的耐心和较长的时间。只有真诚互信、锲而不舍，才能最终找出公平合理、为双方所接受的方案。
The joint statement referred to the United Nations resolution that listed the Jamaat-ul-Dawa, Lashkar-e-Toiba and Hafiz Saeed as agents of terrorism. Until recently, China was resisting adding the Jamaat-ul-Dawa to the list. Now, its mention in the joint statement is being seen as a small step forward. Also, there were no signs of China openly assuring any support to India for a permanent seat in the United Nations Security Council. The official statement issued to the media after the joint press conference reads, "China supports India's aspiration to play a greater role in the United Nations, including the Security Council. China welcomes India's election to non-permanent membership." However, the countries have showed great interest in trade-related matters. India and China have set a huge trade target of $100 billion by 2015. The two signed 6 pacts, including one in the field of green technology. The agreements were signed after talks between Prime Minister Manmohan Singh and Chinese Premier Wen Jiabao. Besides the MOU on green technology, the two sides also signed MOU each on exchange of hydrological data of common rivers, media exchanges and cultural exchanges.
India and China are two great ancient civilizations that have flourished for thousands of years. The constant exchange of ideas, scholars, goods and scriptures have enriched our relationship through the ages.
Chinese Premier Wen Jiabao then travelled to Pakistan on Friday after bolstering ties with India. Prime Minister Syed Yusuf Raza Gilani and Chinese Premier Wen Jiabao held one-on-one meeting in Islamabad and vowed to further strengthen their evergreen fraternal ties in diverse fields, including trade, energy and technology. The two leaders met at the Prime Minister's house and discussed the ways and means on how to deepen the strategic bilateral relationship between Pakistan and China. Prime Minister Gilani termed China as a trusted partner, very good neighbour and a close friend of Pakistan. Moreover, with Pakistan needing foreign investment to help create jobs for its 175 million people, Foreign Ministry spokesman Abdul Basit said that a push for greater business links will be a big part of Wen's visit.
Lately, we have been trying to expand the scope of this relationship because our economic and trade relations do not really depict or portray the strength of our political relationship. Our bilateral trade is close to $7 billion, which is nothing.
Islamabad has also agreed in principle to the deal to purchase 2 nuclear reactors from China, and the two countries are working out the financial details. Now, while China does not make the conditional demands the United States does in its relationship with Islamabad, Beijing is not left empty-handed from its ties with Pakistan. The country serves as China's gateway to the Muslim world and is a close and cheap source of natural resources to fuel its growing economy.
Well, it's not only in India which is scam-ridden, but in Pakistan also. The Hajj scam slowly turned out to be a depressing affair. Prime Minister Yusuf Raza Gilani even sacked the 2 federal ministers at the center of the Hajj affair. He has also asked a federal secretary who is facing corruption charges to report to the establishment division.
On the other hand, the Federal Investigation Agency or FIA reportedly froze the bank accounts of sacked Minister Hamid Saeed Kazmi and 4 other officials of the Religious Affairs Ministry and put the names on the exit control list. Reports also mentioned that FIA obtained an audio CD containing recording of telephonic conversation of close relatives of former minister with some travel agents allegedly about some deals. But however, the sacked Minister for Religious Affairs Hamid Saeed Kazmi maintained that his removal had come because of the match between him and another minister and not on corruption charges. On the other hand, Minister for Science and Technology Mohammad Azam Khan Swathi submitted a written statement in the Supreme Court in reference to Hajj corruption case. Swathi's statement quoted Secretary Religious Affairs as saying that Minister for Religious Affairs Hamid Saeed Kazmi was involved in corruption. And in other turn of events, Prime Minister Syed Yusuf Raza Gilani said that the government was in full control of the internal situation and that it would not allow anybody to pursue the vested personal agendas or derail the country from the path of economic prosperity and sustained democracy. He also mentioned that Pakistan is arguably in an unprecedented era of transformation and has emerged as an important country, particularly since the 9/11.
On the other hand, in Bangladesh, a raising fire at a garment unit of Hammim Group at Ashulia Sawar left at least 20 people dead before it could be doused. Most of the people died due to suffocation and extreme heat. Many workers also jumped to their deaths to escape from one of the worst fire accidents in recent memory. Deputy Managing Director of the factory, Delwar Hussain, said that some 6,000 people worked in the factory. Following the tragic fire, the garment unit of Hammim Group at Ashulia. However, workers and their relatives who gathered in front of the factory on Wednesday claimed that many of the workers were still missing. Meanwhile, Bangladesh Garment Manufacturers and Exporters Association announced that it would pay 1 lakh taka as compensation to each family of the deceased. The government and the BGMEA also formed 2 separate probe committees to find out cause of the fire, which is yet to be identified. And now we will check out updates from Nepal, where there was a twin order flying with 19 pilgrims crashed in a forest in eastern Nepal, killing all on board, including the 3 crew members as well. While the crew was from Nepal, 18 of the pilgrims were from Bhutan.
Domestic Nepali airline Tara Air was flying to Kathmandu from the Lamidanda airport in Khotang district in eastern Nepal. It took off at around 3:05 p.m. in the afternoon on Wednesday, but lost contact soon afterwards and search helicopters were sent to trace it, but they failed to find it due to bad weather. When the search resumed on Thursday, the wreck of the plane was found in the forest with the bodies scattered over a wide area and there were no survivors. Grieving relatives waited at the main airport in both Nepal and Bhutan on Thursday after Nepal's aviation authorities confirmed. Moreover, Bhutan's Prime Minister Jigme Thinley expressed shock and grief at the crash as the Ministry of Tourism and Civil Aviation in Nepal formed a 5-member panel headed by former head of Civil Aviation Authority to investigate the cause of the air crash. The ministry asked the panel to submit within 90 days a report on the causes of the crash of Tara Air's Twin Otter.
After all those stories from Nepal, we will now check out some of the news that made the headlines in Sri Lanka. It was after a lot of controversy that a Sri Lankan court finally ruled to accept the video footage presented to court by a private electronic media institution on the controversial white flag case against former army commander Lydia Sarath Fonseca. The Colombo High Court had announced that it would accept the video evidence in the case against Fonseca, despite objections raised by the defense. Smiles have finally returned to the faces of Indian exporters in 2010. After nearly 12 months of suffering the pain of recession in advanced economies, October 2009 saw the tide turn in favor of Indian exporters, and the situation is just getting better and better with each passing month of 2010.
In a recent statement, Commerce Secretary Rahul Kullar has said that all the exports had seen good growth rate for the April-November period. So much so, the value of the country's outbound goods consignment this fiscal is expected to far exceed the target of $200 billion, and it was $179 billion in the previous year. But since things had gone so bad between October 2008 and May 2009, under the impact of demand recession in all the major markets of Indian merchandise, the initial phase of recovery was seen as no great shakes because it came on the back of a low base of annual comparison. However, right from the first quarter of the fiscal 2010-11, the actual recovery has been visible, helped by a turnaround in the United States and the European market, as also increased global prices in commodities. It was between April and November that engineering exports were up to 50%, gems and jewellery 16%, and petroleum products 41%. Moreover, as a result of demands picking up in the Western stores and production facilities, India's merchandise shipments have also went up by 26.7% to $140.3 billion between the April and November. The Commerce Secretary has also said that it was for the first time over a long period that the pace of growth in exports was faster than imports, which expanded by 24% in the 8 months of 2010-11 fiscal year. Consequent to exports doing well, worries on the balance of trade front have also receded. The trade gap for the April-November period was $81.7 billion. At this rate, it could go anywhere between $120 billion to $135 billion, depending on the global prices of crude, which account for about 30% of the country's import bill.
We will now wrap up this edition of The Week Gone By here. I'll be back next week again with more news and updates from across South Asia. Till then, goodbye and keep watching TV South Asia.